So after a month of this movie being out in theaters, and after waiting for 2 years for this movie to finally be released, I finally got the chance to watch The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson as the new Batman. And honestly, did my excitement at all still live up to my expectations in this movie? Did I still enjoy the movie? And to be honest, I did. I enjoyed the movie, and there are some things that I don't really like in this movie, and there's a lot of things that I do like in this movie. And a lot of people, because of the hype, they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's a masterpiece." And I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on this film because as much as I enjoy this, there are some things that I didn't really like about this movie that kind of pulled me out. So, with that being said, let's get right to it. Okay, so talking about some of the criticisms that I have about this particular movie is the length of the film. Riddler, and there's some scenes that fall a little flat. It's just kind of like, are you absolutely kidding me? And this kind of has to deal with the whole, like, the length of the film. So, honestly, this movie, like, here's the thing, this movie is almost 3 hours long. And when you get out of the theater, it feels like it's longer than 3 hours. Like, your legs just start to shake, and like, they're aching just a little, they're shaking because of the fact that you've been sitting on a theater room, like a theater seat, for like almost 3 hours. And if you stayed for the previews, yeah, you were there for over 3 hours just trying to watch this movie. And I went with a group of friends, and we had we had a great experience watching this movie. But when it came to the length of this movie, we all had the same thing. This movie was dragged out way too long. You could have cut 10, 15, 20. One of our guys even said 30 minutes of the movie. You could have cut 30 minutes of the movie, and it still would have been great. And in my opinion, honestly, you could have cut 15 minutes from the film, and it still would have been great, because there are scenes in this movie that do feel flat, where the acting doesn't feel as great in certain scenes. And there are scenes in this movie that just kind of pull you out, and you're just like, really? Did that just freaking happen? And honestly, there are some great moments within this movie. You know, there are scenes that make you laugh, but this movie was, for the fact that it was almost a 3 hour movie and how dark it was, I think it was a small problem. And while the length and some scenes feeling a bit flat is a minor criticism, I think that's something that's very important as well. So talking about the Riddler in this movie, now, not gonna lie, I think Paul Dano as the Riddler is a great choice. He is absolutely terrifying in this movie, but the problem that I had with this character, and there's two problems that I had: his social media presence within the movie, and the Arkham scene, where him and Batman end up having a conversation in Arkham. Now, the social media presence, I'm kind of on the fence with it, because I like the idea of Riddler having this kind of cult, this kind of gang and all that. But it just really feels a bit weird when Riddler goes out on social media. He's doing a live stream, and he's talking to his followers or whatever, and you're just seeing like a bunch of comments and a bunch of likes, and they're supporting him and all that kind of stuff. And it feels very weird. And his whole thing with wanting to take out the people who are corrupted within Gotham is completely fine. But his plan at the very end to flood the freaking city of Gotham, I mean, like, how many times has there been a story where Gotham has had waters polluted, or there's some sort of flooding going on? I mean, like, it's absolutely ridiculous on his freaking plan. And it kind of pulls you out on the film. And with the Arkham scene, I think that's literally the thing that pulls you out of the film the most. Because while I think Paul Dano did a great job as the Riddler, that was one scene that I think didn't even need to be in the movie at some point. Like, I feel like 2 minutes of that scene could have been cut, and that was Riddler literally going, "No, no, 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 this wasn't supposed to happen." And that just kind of pulled me out of the film, and because of him doing that, kind of pulled me out of the film, and also the fact that some of my friends were laughing at it, and I did think it was funny. And and Paul Dano, while I think he's a great actor, that was one of the scenes that pulled me out, and I didn't. And this character that you're supposed to take serious, when that happened, when that scene took place, I really didn't feel like this guy was serious at all. Like, I didn't feel like the Riddler was a serious character. And no, he's not really a serious character, but, he's a very dangerous person and he is a major threat. And this movie makes you feel like this guy is a threat and he needs to be taken care of. This is a very bad person. Like, you got to take care of him, you got to take him out or do something. But those are some of the kind of problems that I have with this movie. It's just the length, the Riddler with his social media presence, the Arkham scene with him, and the whole, like, some scenes in this movie feeling flat. And you do notice this with some other characters. So now that I've talked about my complaints about the movie, some small minor criticisms of the movie that I had, what were the things that I liked about this movie? And here's what I will say. This movie is beautifully shot. Like, this movie is pure cinematography. Like, there are some amazing shots within this movie. I think one of the best shots that we've seen in this movie is pretty much almost any scene that features the Batman, obviously. But I'm talking about, like, the scenes where this guy is, like, on a building or something, and, like, you just have the sunset and you have the city, or he's looking into the city, or where he's talking to Catwoman on a rooftop or whatever. Or something along that nature. It's just absolutely beautiful. And besides this whole cinematography, Robert Pattinson as Batman, as Bruce Wayne, as Batman, I think he does a great job. And for the very little scenes that we get as Bruce Wayne, I feel like Robert Pattinson is trying his best. But you can't take him seriously because he looks like a freaking emo kid. I mean, like, that was one of the biggest things that people were talking about back in 2020 and 2021, and even in even now in 2022, where he looks like a freaking emo kid and everything. And a lot of people have stated, this is Batman trying to be Bruce Wayne, and I can't really see that at all. Anytime that happens. Now, besides the Batman, because I think he was one of my, and obviously because it's a Batman movie, Batman is going to be my favorite character in the movie. What were some of the other favorite, and there are some characters in this movie that I really enjoyed. I think that Alfred in this movie was great, and I was absolutely shocked because there is a point in the movie that I was really shocked because I thought he was going to die. And I was like, oh my God. They literally killed Alfred. Like, I felt a little emotional when I saw that the fact that they were about to kill Alfred in this movie, because if they would have done that, I think that would have been the most shocking thing to see. But besides Alfred in this movie, Zoe Kravitz and Colin Farrell as, like, the Catwoman and Penguin are literally the best characters in this movie besides the Batman and Alfred. And yes, John Toretto as Falcone is great. I think every actor in this movie has done a phenomenal job, but I think Colin Farrell as the Penguin is one of my favorite characters. Is probably my second favorite character in the movie, and with Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman is phenomenal. I think that she is literally the best choice for Catwoman. I think that they chose her as a perfect character within this movie. So, anyhow, let's get into the closing thoughts. Alright, so with that being said, what are my final thoughts about this movie? Now, while, yes, I will consider this movie being a masterpiece, I think one last thing I want to mention before I give out my closing thoughts. I know a lot of people were criticizing the Joker scene with Riddler in Arkham Asylum, and not gonna lie, that was really cool. I had some of my friends were sitting beside me. I had one friend sitting beside me who asked, who was that? And I said, that's the Joker. And her response was, oh my God. And honestly, I think the actor that they chose for the Joker, I think he has a lot of potential. And obviously based on the deleted scene that was dropped a couple weeks, like 2 weeks ago, a lot of us know, but for some of us who don't know, I think he's got to do a great job. So, anyway, closing thoughts. I think that this is probably one of the best Batman movies ever made. And I'm talking about animated and live action films. I think that this is one of the best Batman movies ever made. Does it compete with any of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies? I honestly cannot say, because the only Christopher Nolan Batman movie I've seen is The Dark Knight Returns and The Dark Knight Rises. So, anyway, with that being said, I'm going to give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. I definitely recommend you guys watching this movie. But honestly, for me, there were some scenes that just kind of pulled me out of the film. The length of the movie, and the acting scene there were some scenes that just kind of bothered me, that pulled me out of the movie. And honestly, as much as I want to give it an 8 out of 10, I think a 7.5 out of 10 is the best rating possible. Because while I was really entertained, there were just some times where I was just like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I just want to have this movie be over with. So, anyway, that is it for this review. Let me know, guys, your thoughts about the Batman. Do you think my rating of 7.5 out of 10 is reasonable? And what would you like to see in the future for Robert Pattinson as the Batman? And with that being said, see you all next time. Peace out.